Harvard professor and astrophysicist Avi Loeb. Professor Loeb, thanks for being with us here today. You have been the most legitimate voice, the most renowned or credible voice in pointing out this has some high probability of being something other than a deep space comet. I believe, Professor, you gave it a 40% probability before this latest evidence. Let's talk about what this evidence is: a blue tail and a change in pace.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Indeed, I did a calculation that indicated that in order for it to accelerate in the way that it did recently, it must have, if it's a natural comet, it must have lost a substantial fraction of its mass, of all the 20% or so. And we should see a very massive cloud of gas around it as soon as it comes out of the being hidden behind the sun. That should weigh of order 5 billion tons of gas around it. If we don't see that, there must have been some other means of propulsion that gave it that acceleration. So that's very exciting. You know, it's sort of like going on a blind date and wondering who is on the other side. And, you know, it could be a rock. Maybe that's the most likely interpretation. But we should be open-minded. We should be humble because it's an opportunity to learn something new.
Okay, so it has picked up speed, and you're telling me that is either because it has some alternate source of propulsion other than gravitational pull, or it has an engine. And if it does not have an engine, you're suggesting it should have been shedding size. That's the only way it would have picked up speed. So if it hasn't shedded size, essentially it's got an engine, and therefore it's alien?
Well, yeah, that would be a very interesting possibility. But the cloud of gas that it should have shed, you know, it's a significant fraction of its mass. So it was obliterated by the sunlight in that case. And we should see that the object is losing a lot of mass into a cloud of gas. That's easy to spot with all our telescopes. You know, we have hundreds of them around the globe. So within a few weeks, we will be able to tell. That's what makes it exciting. If there is no gas that it sort of shed and therefore got a recoil from that shedding, you know, like the rocket effect, then it's something else that propelled it. And as you pointed out, it appeared bluer than the sun. You know, that's very unusual because usually comets are red because they're surrounded by dust that makes them red. Their surface is cooler than the surface of the sun, and therefore they are redder. But this one seems to be bluer when it approached the sun. That's actually the time for a spacecraft to accelerate, to use the gravitational assist from the sun.
So last question for you, Professor. If my memory serves correctly, you had it at 40% before this evidence of acceleration and the blue tail. Now that you have this evidence, has your calculation changed at all? 40% that it is some type of artificial technology?
I would wait a few more weeks and either revise my ranking down to 0 or to 10. And of course, that's what makes science exciting. We shouldn't have an opinion about our dating partner. You know, my best advice to people who go on blind dates is to observe the other side before having an opinion. Okay. So I'm just waiting for a few more weeks.
I think this date will end in early December, so we'll check back in and see how you enjoyed the date in early December. Thank you, Professor.
So with that, let's bring in Republican Senate Majority Whip John Barrasso from Wyoming. Senator, always good to see you. Thank you very much for joining us today. So you hear in the language there, which, you know, both sides sort of pushing phraseology that suggests that it's the other side's fault. Let's take a look at the polls and see what we're learning about what people are feeling out there. That one of these is NBC and the other one is the Washington Post, ABC. 52% blaming Republicans for the shutdown, 42% Democrats. And on the other side of this Washington Post one, you've got 46 blame Democrats, 37 46% GOP, 37 Democrats. Tomorrow's election day. Do you think there's going to be an impact, pushback based on these poll numbers in terms of what we see tomorrow, Senator?
Well, and one of the polls said what people really want is the government open, and then we can discuss all of these topics that people are concerned about. Like, we are in this 30-day shutdown and more because the Democrats have shut down the government. They orchestrated it. They organized it in Chuck Schumer's office, and this has done great damage to our country and to our economy. And 13 times the Democrats have voted to keep the government shut. in spite of the fact that when Biden was president, they voted 13 times for the exact same continuing resolution, and they don't seem to care that there are kids going without food, that there are people that are working for the government and our military who are not getting paid. They don't care that our airspace is less safe. The
Senator,
Democrats
they're
are using
making a
people as
political
pawns.
gamble here. That
Yes.
the healthcare issue, and now we're into the open enrollment period, that when people open up those statements and they see that their extended benefits, which really were designed to be temporary during COVID, but we all know how hard it is to claw back something once people have it. So they're betting that this will end up backfiring against the GOP. You know, are you concerned about that healthcare issue and the way it's being presented?
Well, you know, Martha, I'm a doctor, practiced medicine in Wyoming for 24 years, and I want people to have affordable, quality health care. The Democrats broke health care in America when they passed Obamacare. They made all these promises, like if you like your health care, you can keep it, and the premiums would go down by $2,500. These were all lies. And then they had to prop it up with juicy subsidies, which is what they did, and then they added even more juicy subsidies on top of that because Obamacare was failing. And then they made matters worse by allowing millions of illegal immigrants into the country, and they offered them free health care. Now they're trying to blame all of these failures on Republicans. It's just wrong. People understand that. What we need to do is get the government open, and we can discuss all of these other topics. But if you do anything with health care, there needs to be significant reforms for the waste in the system that we see, as well as the abuse and the manipulation and the money laundering that's working its way through the system.
There's a push to see the Republican plan on how to fix all that. And President Trump was asked about it in the interview on 60 Minutes. What's your answer to that? Oh, you know what? I'm going to have to hold that thought. John Thune, the majority leader, is speaking right now.
Okay, let's bring in Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons now. Todd, welcome to you, and thank you so much for being here. I want to play out President Trump yesterday in the CBS interview where he was pressed on these ICE raids. Listen.
Have some of these raids gone too far?
No, I think they haven't gone far enough because we've been held back by the judges, by the liberal judges that were put in by Biden and by Obama. You have to get the people out. You know, you have to look at the people. Many of them are murderers. Many of them are people that were thrown out of their countries because they were, criminals.
So what does not far enough mean? What more is the administration hoping for here?
Well, Sandra, I think the first thing that we're hoping for is that we're going to go out, we're going to be focusing on those criminal aliens, but we're going to work with those state and local partners that want to work with us, right? We've seen great results in Operation Midway Blitz, just, what Secretary Noem announced, that what we did with our partners in Indiana. And we're going to, state and locals that want to work with us, we're going to have a large scope now where we're going to go ahead and identify as many of these illegal aliens as we can, and we're going to take action on them. No one's off the table. We're going to use all the tools in the toolbox. We have great federal partners. Department of Justice has been outstanding with us, and we are going to team up with everyone that wants to work with us, and we're going to go out there and keep the president's promise to make sure that we have one of the largest deportation
You have heard, obviously, the accusations from those critics, many on the far left, who are saying that the ICE agents are unnecessarily using violent tactics. President Trump was asked about that as well. He said they have to be used. Yeah, he said, because you have to get the people out. So how would you describe the tactics that this administration is willing to use to get those violent criminals off the streets?
Sandra, I think the big issue is the fact that this, for the first time ever, ICE has been allowed to do their law enforcement mission. And the problem is so many on the left, and there are so many people opposed to us, that a lot of the tactics that you are seeing are in self-defense. When you have elected officials with their rhetoric that's calling for the active pushback and resistance of federal law enforcement officers, that's why you're seeing more officers on the street and the actions that the men and women of ICE, Customs and Border Protection, Border Patrol, and our other federal partners have to take, is because now ICE agents are targeted. So before we go out and make those arrests, we're being swarmed by protesters, people that aren't even involved in a law enforcement action. And I think that's what you're seeing. And it's this rhetoric that's ramping up that is causing these events. And that's what's being highlighted by so many media outlets, is the aftermath of what happens after the arrest has taken place.
Secretary Noem joined us right here on this program on Thursday to your point about the rhetoric and the actions against these ICE agents and the threats that are mounting against them. She said this, listen.
Their words have consequences, and we're seeing that. An 8,000% increase in death threats against law enforcement. That's horrific. That shouldn't be happening in America. That shouldn't happen anywhere in the world, and I blame them. I place the blame squarely on their shoulders.
The they to which she's referring is Mayor Johnson, the mayor of the city of Chicago, the governor of Illinois, Pritzker. What is your message to them to tamp down this rhetoric?
You know, Sandra, what I'd say to any elected official is you have to stop with this rhetoric that's putting a target on the men and women of ICE. The men and women of ICE are only out there doing the sworn law enforcement mission that they signed up to do. So what I'd say to any elected official that doesn't like immigration action right now is to work with us. You know, tone down the rhetoric, stop putting targets on ICE agents' backs, and go ahead and make your community safer. Work with us to take out these public safety threats. That's what the president has promised. That's what the secretary is doing by leading from the front and going out with the men and women of ICE and actually seeing what they deal with every day. That's what we want any elected official to do. Work with us to make your community safer.
Todd Lyons joining us live there from the White House. We appreciate your time today, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sandra. Good seeing you.